Thank you for joining the Nonprofit Learning Lab for today's workshop. If you have any questions along the way for our presenter, you can type them into the GoToWebinar chat box, likely found on the right-hand side of your screen. If you have any tech questions, you can type them there as well. And without further ado, I will now hand it over to you, Cassandra.
Thank you so much. So we're going to talk about getting everyone on the same page, and our learning goals for the session are up on the screen. And these are, I'm mostly going to speak to nonprofit organizations and how they get their message across. However, this is also applicable if you're a consultant, and you can think about your own messaging, and or you could think about a client that you have and how you might help them get their message out. So we're going to talk about how you can make a compelling case in your everyday work and conversations, and how this can help inspire people to invest in your mission. And you're going to walk away with a process and a toolkit that your team can use right away. So when you think about making your case compelling, there's kind of two layers of conversation. So in your organization, you have a common language when you talk to each other and you talk to your staff and your board and your volunteers. But then all of these people go out and talk to other people that aren't in the organization. And so that's a different kind of language that you need to think about, because we often have internal language that people from externally don't know what it means, or acronyms, or they don't understand. So we want to help everyone get on the same page when talking to these external audiences. It could be the general public, people you meet in your daily life. It could be donors, funders, potential clients, people that you serve. And so let's get to it. A bottom line assumption I'm making is that people in the nonprofit sector, you feel passionate for the work of your organization, and that you want to communicate that, and that you want people to genuinely feel excited and inspired and connected. So when you think about the questions that you get asked every day, how do you use those opportunities to communicate your shared passion? Oftentimes, it's not the ideal. And so I'm going to give you this magic wand question to imagine that you and your team feel confident in answering any question that you get asked. Questions get asked every day, like what do you do, why, how? And imagine that you have everything you need to answer any question from donors, funders, volunteers, and more. That you feel good about sharing your passion, that you can turn around grant proposals or requests for proposals easily, that you don't have to be reinventing the wheel, and that you can create compelling fundraising materials easily and quickly, and that you genuinely feel like everyone is on the same page. So here is our first poll. How confident are you in sharing your passion for the organization that you work with? And the choices are very confident, somewhat confident, neutral, somewhat unconfident, or very unconfident. So I can't hear anything if you're saying the results of the poll, and you may not be yet. You may be waiting for people to finish.
Yeah, we have about 85% of people voted, so.
Okay, just checking.
It's at 1 minute, so I'm going to go ahead and end it and read out the results then. Okay, we have 36% of people with very confident, 47% of people with somewhat confident, 10% with neutral, 5% with somewhat unconfident, and 2% with very unconfident.
That's interesting. Those are really high numbers for the very confident and somewhat confident. So I'm guessing that if people feel that confident on this webinar, that maybe they work with people that are not feeling that confident. So much of what I'm saying, maybe you already know, and that hopefully if that's the case, that you can more easily share it with the rest of the people on your team so that the whole team can feel as confident as you do. So one thing about this issue is that a lot of people in nonprofits really don't feel prepared when they're asked these questions. And these are not surprising questions or uncommon questions, but a lot of people just feel like they don't know what to say. They freeze up, that deer in the headlights. Maybe not you, but people that you work with. So there are common communication challenges across the sector. And depending on what the challenges are for you and your team, there are different ways to address them. So here's a few. And you may have one of these, you may not have any, you might have a different one, you might have all of them. But just to let you know that this isn't something that is unusual, that this is really a common issue that people face. So this is what it looks like when you talk to people that don't feel confident about this. I don't know what to say. I freeze up when someone asks what we do. I ramble and I feel like my message isn't landing. I was talking to someone the other day who said, I made myself a note that said, don't overshare. I feel defensive, like I'm trying to prove something. I hear this a lot. And I can't find the perfect words or the right words. This one, our work is an experience and it's hard to put into words. I also hear this a lot. And there is a solution for this, which I'm going to talk about very soon. So thinking about what would help you share your passion more, or what would help some of your teammates or your board members or your volunteers share their passion more. And sometimes it's literally just this permission that they can share their passion and their own personal story. So again, this is something that you go on a case-by-case basis. There may be times in that you for some reason don't want people to do this, but if this is something that people can do, this can be a really easy solution for helping people feel like they know what to say and that they can connect with people. Other times people feel like they want to have some practice and to get feedback. Sometimes people do feel like they need more facts and information to draw from. Often this is not the case. Often people have too much information, which is really what is at the root of why they're struggling to say something. But occasionally, if you're talking to funders and they're looking at outcomes or impact data, there are things that you can do to bring data into the hands of the people that are being asked these questions that will help. Again, it's often something that when people try to get people on the same page, that they end up with these scripts and people don't feel comfortable with them. And so there's kind of a way to look at that where you want to like help people and guide them, like, but not limit them or restrict them or make them feel like they need to, say everything the same way, word for word. And then sometimes people just want a low pressure environment to build that confidence. Okay, so one of the best marketing tips I've really ever heard, and it was many years ago at a conference, is that when you are having the opportunity to talk to somebody, instead of just launching in and going on and saying as much as you can in as short a time as you can, that you start with a small amount of information. And then if they want more, you can give them more. And if they want more than that, you can give them more. So I really love ice cream, and I love this idea of thinking about making this fun and thinking about your story bank of your organization as an ice cream store. And so you have tasters. And so what would that taster be? And then if somebody tastes it and they say they want more, by asking you what else, or you can ask them, would you like to hear something else? Then you give them a little bit more. And then again, you watch and see how it's landing. And then if they want more and you have time, you can give them more. And in the end, if they want a lot, you can end up with that metaphorical banana split, but you haven't fire hosed anyone, you haven't given a long speech. And a lot of times people talk about elevator speeches, and it's always funny because there are places that there's not a lot of elevators. I mean, I'm on an elevator maybe a few times a year. But if you think about an elevator conversation instead of an elevator speech, that is really a way to engage with the person instead of feeling like you're performing or you're having to like recite a speech. So one thing that is really effective is stories, and stories do not have to be long. Stories can be one sentence. And these are some very simple prompts that you can think about. So here's the first one, before and after. What was life like before your organization stepped in and what changed? And this can be, like a big picture answer, like before this happened, the person's life was this way, and afterwards their life was this way. It can also be one day in the life of your interaction with this person. So, for example, if you're a food bank or Meals on Wheels, before that person was hungry or they didn't have food and they couldn't get to the store. And then after they were, fulfilled and nourished and able to be functional and present with their day. You can also think about, the longer term, and that's something that oftentimes nonprofits do not have that data or information because they are not funded to do long-term research on their impacts. And so they are sometimes asked this question, and I people ask me what should I say when I get asked that question. And I say a couple things. One thing is we're not funded to do long-term research, and we do this X, we end up with a result of Y, and research shows that that leads to, and then you can say the long-term impacts. So for example, if you were tutoring, you could say we tutor, our outcomes are that kids learn to read or adults learn to read, and they're more successful in school and life, and research shows that this leads to, and fill in the blank, higher graduation rates, better employment. So it doesn't have to be that you're collecting data. I mean, you often organizations really don't have a capacity to do that. If you do, great. But if you don't, stick to what you do, what the results of that are, because you are changing people's days and lives every day. So another prompt is from blank to blank. So again, it doesn't have to be really complicated. I think about cleaning your office. It goes from cluttered and disorganized to organized. So this one is similar to the first prompt, but again, it is getting at the results. And I tested these questions on recently, and they worked incredibly well, even with a project that was many years and that had a lot of different things in it. And it worked so well that we ended up with a whole bunch of ways to simply describe this very complicated work from the people that had experienced it. So these really are great. You don't have to have a list of fancy questions or very, very detailed questions. This gets at the heart of the matter. And then the third one, the story of a life changed. Oftentimes nonprofits are asked about scale and how many do you serve, and that's all important. And no matter how many people you serve, you are doing it one person at a time. And sharing that one person's experience can often help people understand exactly what it is that you're doing in a pretty simple way. So again, these are things that hopefully will make this easy for you, that you can start doing right away, and that you can help other people learn that these are very helpful in those conversations. And also, of course, these are the same questions that you get asked when you're applying for grants or other things that maybe not daily conversations, but are essentially getting at these same questions. So this question is an interesting one, and since I'm talking about compelling communications, I thought it would be good to talk about what does it mean and what does it mean to you. And really, the heart of it is that they understand what you're saying. If somebody doesn't understand what you're saying, they can't go from there. There's nowhere to go. And so if you tell somebody too much and they walk away with nothing, they literally remember nothing, they understand nothing. And so I know a lot of times people are worried that they want to make 2 or 3 points, but in the end they make 0. So fundamentally say the shortest and smallest thing possible at first, and if that's all that you get across, that's still one thing, and one thing is better than nothing. So again, if you think about a short thing that you can say that's short enough that it would be on a bumper sticker or a t-shirt, that is a good place to start. And I literally unprompted was talking to a funder a few months ago, and she was saying how frustrating it was when she was working with grantees that they couldn't say something simple about what they did. And she literally said that. I always ask them what would be on the t-shirt. So the thing is that you come up with these things, and then you could actually make a bumper sticker or a t-shirt, and it would help everyone. You could, if you could even use an image, that would be even better. It's even easier to remember and to communicate. Okay, another thing that is really a potential resource for all organizations is the power of the personal stories. So there's 2 levels to this. It's the stories of the people that are working in the organization, your staff, your board members, your volunteers, and often these stories are about their interaction with the people that your organization serves. And so here's one way to look at prompting, getting a prompt for those stories. When is a time that you felt alive, excited, and deeply connected to the mission? Again, a baseline assumption is that everyone has one of these, and many people have more than one. And so think about how you can access these, and then that is a way for people to share something that is real to them, that is authentic, that is coming from their heart, that is an expression of why they are doing the work that they're doing with your organization. So here again are these magic questions, and describe a time you felt alive, excited, engaged in your work. And I just did a workshop, an in-person workshop last week, and had people ask each other these questions. And then I had them share out, and it really blew me away. I mean, the stories that people shared were incredible. They were moving, they were emotional, and they weren't trying to be. They were literally feeling emotion themselves, remembering and sharing about these experiences. And then if you want to do another question, you can look at the skills and talents that you're most proud of bringing and what part of your role is most fulfilling. These things often don't get asked, and you can build them into your work. You can build them into your staff meetings or your board meetings. And the more that you do that, the more people are going to get reconnected and connected with the passion that they already do feel, maybe not every minute of the day, but that they feel, because that otherwise, why are they involved? I mean, people are involved because the organization is making a difference and doing something important. The next question, the magic wand question, is also a really great one. I started using it recently, just curious to see what people would say. And so again, you wave that magic wand, you imagine, you know, you fell asleep for 5 years and you wake up and everything is like you've always wanted it to be, and your organization has won an award for communicating your impact. And what would be different? And at that workshop last week, I asked this question and people talked to each other about it. And a woman said, when I asked if anyone wanted to share, that she wanted to talk about how they got that award. And it really came down to why. Why did they do the work that they did? And so she said what would be different is that they would be asking the staff to about their days, about their experiences. And through that, they would get these stories and they would become a listening organization. And I just thought that was incredible. And sometimes people think, well, I've tried to get these stories, I've tried to get staff to tell me, and you know, they don't tell me, or it's not a priority. And I just said, look, if it's not easy for them, they're not going to be able to do it. It's not that it's not a priority. It's that if you make it too hard, they can't do it. So how can you make it easy? And that kind of led to the connections that this woman was making about, I will go out and ask these things. I will make it easy for them, and then it will change everything. So you can use these questions in your daily meetings, in your daily work, and you can also do things like have retreats and use them. But these are, again, things that thinking about weaving them and integrating into the daily work of your organization will really change things. Okay, so we have our next poll. So I just talked about all these questions, and which of the ones is it hardest for you to answer? And if you want to answer what your team thinks is the hardest, that's okay too. Whatever is the hardest one for you and your team to answer.
We'll leave it up for about 15 more seconds.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have 13% with what do you do, 4% with why, 14% with how, 45% with what are the results, and 24% with why do you need money.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, so not that many people said how, and so that is interesting. So the biggest one was what are the results? And the second one is why do you need money? So again, why do you need money is something that hopefully you can work with your team to get a good answer for that. And then you'll be prepared. I mean, because essentially, if you're asking people for money, you want to have a good answer for that question. And the results one we talked about already. So I won't say any more about it right now, but thank you for answering that. And we're going to go on to the toolkit and the resources. So if you don't have one already, you can develop a compelling case for support for your organization, which is a document, it's a set of documents, and these are the essential elements. So one of the things that you're all going to have access to is a set of handouts that talk about these elements and a tip sheet on how to create these for your organization so that you have them ready to go, so that you can see these sections, outcomes and impact, that goes straight to the results. Financials goes straight to money and what you need, how you spend money, your funding priorities, same thing. So all of these elements are included in this template. So the last poll is looking at all of these. What would help your organization most right now? So you can't do all of them at once. If you're going to pick the one or two that are most important, which ones do you think would do that, would be the biggest return on your investment for putting in this effort?
Fifteen more seconds. Okay. We have 24% for emotional appeal and testimonies, 16% with data and research, 44% with clear outcomes, 11% with transparency about donations, and 5% with other.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so one more encouragement of why this is worth putting in the effort in. This is a true story. This is actually last year. So, as we all know, last year was a difficult fundraising one. And a small nonprofit who had only had previously one individual donor and was relying almost entirely on grants developed a case for support, the sections I just had up there with the tools that you're all going to get. And within 8 months of this, they had raised over $50,000 from new donors and landed a $25,000 grant. So this does lead you to money, or it can lead you to money. Okay, here's some of the examples of things that I said are going to be available to you, and they're going to be in a box folder that you'll get at the end of after the webinar's over. And again, you want to have a team helping you out on this. So there's some support materials, checklists. A lot of these things you already have. They're just probably not organized in a way that's easy for you to use. So key takeaways: collect stories from your staff, board, and volunteers now. Again, stories can be a sentence. And create a system to update. You can literally have a Google Doc as your system to start with. Whatever, you don't have to start huge. Start small. Do the thing you can do now and then build on it. Develop your taster messages and what your small, medium, and large messages and stories are. And then convene a group and develop a compelling case for support. And again, you can't do it all at once probably, but start somewhere and keep going. So I want to say thank you to everyone that helped in this preparation and Nonprofit Learning Lab. You'll see at C4G, Tracy McConnell has developed a lot of the materials that you're going to get. You'll see both of our names on there. And we have little time for Q&A. If there's not enough time now, you can always reach out to me. And in fact, I have an offer of a 30-minute communications makeover session. If anyone wants to sign up for me, I have a Google Doc and a QR code that you can fill out a form, a Google form, and I will get in touch with you.
Amazing. So for anyone who does have questions, please drop those in the chat or the questions tab. The first question that I did see is, will the slides be shared? And yes, they will be available. You'll be able to download them from the bottom of our free webinar page or email us at program@nonprofitlearninglab.org, probably by the end of day tomorrow.
If you want them faster, feel free to email me. I will send them out if you're feeling like I want to share these today.
How do you tackle compelling communications for orgs with broad missions?
Yeah, it's a great question. One way is you just rotate the one thing you say, and you start with one thing and then you say another thing. So at this workshop last week, somebody had said 5 things that they did in their organization at the intros in the beginning. And then at the end, I asked them, I said, who wants to try their taster on me? And somebody raised their hand and they just said one thing that they did. And I said, great. What else do you do? So then that's a way of sequencing it, one at a time. The other thing is, if you can get something that is so broad that it covers everything, it may not be specific enough to, communicate everything you want. But again, it's not the only thing you're going to say. So even we help people X, we help organizations X. Like that would be the t-shirt or the bumper sticker. But you don't have to feel anxious that you're not getting your whole mission across, because that's just the first thing. And then you can add other things later in other communications.
Perfect. Is there a way to get coworkers more excited to share what the org does?
Yeah, I mean, if you are talking about people that aren't daily interacting with people, like their admin, get them out there, do a ride along or a day in the life of. Getting direct contact with people is extremely exciting. I mean, every story that people told that at that workshop was what happens in a daily capacity. And like some people were, the grant staff, they didn't see that on a daily basis. So that is one, like, reconnect or connect people to the magic that your organization is creating in community.
Amazing. We are at time. I'm seeing two other great questions, but unfortunately, we don't have time to get to those. But I'm sure if you email Cassandra at the email address there, she'll be happy to answer them.
I will be.
Amazing. Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm going to drop one more thing in the chat from our organization and then get us closed out. So thank you so much, Cassandra. Thank you, everyone. This workshop has now come to a close. If you're interested in receiving the recording and materials from today's workshop, you can download them on the bottom of our free webinar page or email us at program@nonprofitlearninglab.org. Thank you so much for participating. And again, thank you, Cassandra, for educating our community.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.